Welcome back to Our Community. Susie Thomas with Doug Lane, president of the North Canton Chamber of Commerce. You do a lot of collaborating, and a lot of that means elected officials becoming involved with what you're doing as well. How do you work that?
Well, we've always had a good relationship with now Representative Scott Olsteiger.
Yes, they always
Senator
switch. Yes.
Kirk Scheuring. No matter what office they've had, they've always been connected with us,
yes.
Particularly Scott, because he lives in North Canton, and he does a very good job of staying in touch with us. But they've met up with our members. But we tried to enhance that over the last year or so. We had a members event with Senator Portman last year that was very well attended, and this is a great story. We had Joe Wagner come from Wagner's Chocolates.
Yes.
So he brought a whole bunch of Buckeyes, okay? Portman loved them. So the senator, they ordered some, and they just shared them at one of their retreats or their meetings at the Capitol within the last couple of weeks. So here's a North Canton company that now is on the D.C. radar thanks to our meeting.
How cool is
that? So
that
happened. We had Senator Brown there a couple of years ago. Then Attorney General Mike DeWine, now governor, he addressed our group a couple of years ago. We just had a meeting with Anthony Gonzalez from the 16th and Bob Gibbs from the 7th. They did a joint appearance for us and talked with our members. I think I mentioned in the last segment we had Secretary of State Frank LaRose. The Lieutenant Governor is coming here soon to talk about workforce. So, again, we're trying to up our game a little bit to be more, I guess, state and federally oriented as well as what we do local, because what they do in Columbus, what they do in D.C. affects us here. And I think it's very important that those leaders hear from our members, not from me. I just sit there and facilitate them, but we have the members talk to these people and answer questions and let them know what's on their mind and things like that. Before she left office, we had Lieutenant Governor Taylor there, and she met with a bunch of our members to talk about her Common Sense initiative, and they peppered her pretty good with a lot of questions. And so those are the kind of things that we try to do, even more so. We interact with City Council, obviously, because they're right next door,
right?
And we always make sure that they're aware of what we're doing. But most of what I do with the city, I work with the administration on that.
How many states have their very own candy, like the Buckeye? How lucky are we to have something like that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And very smart, Joe Wagner. You knew what to arrive with. That's so good.
Yeah, that goes way back. That whole story with Wagner's Chocolates is pretty impressive. You go back
was
to
London Candies and said Wagner, and
yes. And Wagner's, now Wagner's, was a founding member of the Chamber 60 years ago.
I didn't know that.
So, yeah, I'm trying to think if I remember all of these. It was North Canton TV, the City of North Canton, the Hoover Company, Matthew Supply, then Harry London, now Wagner Chocolate, Willis Motors, and there was another one. Some of them are gone now. Harder Bank, I believe, which is now Key Bank.
Oh, sure.
And so...
and that was it.
Yeah, and so that's what started in July of 1959. And at the time, our boundaries went all the way out the Middle Branch and also over towards Wales Road because it was all farmland. So there were little businesses here and there. So that's where we came up with the North Canton Area Chamber of Commerce, because we do have a number of members in Jackson Township, some in Canton, primarily North Canton and Plain Township. But, we don't put toll booths up at the city limits or anything.
No, thank
Somebody
goodness.
has an interest in the city and its residents, or maybe they live there and they want to see us continue our good work, well, then, we want to have them as a member.
How about the relationship between Plain Township and North Canton? Because so much of Plain Township is in North Canton, or pretty much across the street.
Well, it used to be. Yeah.
Yeah. How does that work?
When I was on council, we divorced from Plain Township.
Oh, okay.
North Canton used to be in Plain Township. Now North Canton is Hoover Township.
Why did that happen? Or is this something I shouldn't even bring up?
No, I really not sure where all it was something that was percolating before I got on council. And then it just kind of took on a life of its own. Part of it was so many times the people in North Canton had their own representatives.
Yes.
So why would they want to worry about a Plain Township trustee that actually had nothing to do with the city of North Canton?
Got it.
So it was one of those things that was about time to happen. And so we have really good relationships with Plain Township. I talk with Trustee Haas all the time. In fact, I think in this newsletter I brought you, there's a picture of us cutting the ribbon at Melly and North at Onyx.
Oh, isn't that nice? Yes.
And they're right across the street on the Plain Township side of Market.
So good relationship with Plain Township and Jackson Township, except when it comes on the football field and basketball court.
Well, I was going to say you have to kind of leave those on the sidelines, literally. But, for the most part, I mean, we're out to get business in our city. But if a business doesn't want to locate in our city, maybe we can sell them water. Or maybe we can work together with a JED or something like that. And again, those are things that I can advocate for, but those are policy issues that I can't I'm not on council anymore, and I'm not in the administration, so they have to handle that, but I can help facilitate
You can facilitate it.
Those discussions anyway.
You know what I loved when you were talking about all the elected officials? You were mentioning both parties. Mm-hmm. There wasn't just one party that is working with you. How do you handle the bipartisan and get everybody to work across the aisle in a bipartisan kind of way?
During the election, before the 2018, we had Susan Palmer, who ran against Anthony Gonzalez. We had both of them meeting our board. And we don't endorse a candidate. We never have. We can legally because we're a 501c6, but we don't get into that. And so we had both of them. We had Lorraine Wilburn, who ran for state rep, I believe, or state senate. Maybe I can't remember now. It's all kind of running together. But Lorraine talked to our group. I try and do my best to reach across the aisle. I've always had good relationships with Senator Brown's office and with Senator Portman's. On the state level, I don't think there's a Democrat down there now. But, as they start to pop up, I mean, we had an invitation to Kathleen Clyde to come visit our chamber at the same time as Frank LaRose. So, we do our best to make sure, because you never know who's going to win an election. And you got to make sure you're not tainted, or I shouldn't say tainted, you're not branded as, the Republican chamber or the Democrat chamber, because it does take both sides. And both of those parties are going to end up making law. So it's very important to be a part of that and make sure that our voices are heard, no matter whether they're an independent, a Democrat, or a Republican.
They say all politics is local.
Absolutely.
And this is where it all happens.
Yeah, it really does. And it makes a big difference when you have a seat at the table. I remember Dave Johnson always told me, if you're not in the room, you're not in the room. So,
Oh, isn't that just the perfect?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you're not in the room, you're not in the room. If you're not in the room, then you're in big trouble, because you need to be in the room. And so our best efforts are always to try and be in the room, no matter who's making the laws.
It can be so frustrating when you get some plans going down the road and really moving forward with it, and then there's a whole change in administration.
Oh, yeah.
You think, where are we now with things like?
Well, and we have this fall, and we stay out of it for obvious reasons. Number one, we're under contract with the city, so I can't really be taking sides in that. But, we have a mayoral election. We have the entire council's up. There's a couple of school board members up in our city. And so we have to wait till November to see what shakes out of that, and then continue to work with whatever the end result is. And so we do our best to make sure that, we're on top of all of those things, and that we have good relationships with all the people that are involved. I can't shut anybody out.
Right. Never burn a bridge.
I mean, the voters pick your friends. You don't pick your friends. I found that out. I think I called it one time my term and my sentence. I had 2 years of each. Yeah.
What are your goals, Doug, for the future?
Well, I think to finish a lot of the things that Patrick DiOrio and I have in place, I'm figuring I'm good for about another 5 years, okay, as long as my health holds out. But I want to change the chamber's dynamics. I want to be able to take us to the next level. That 60 years is something to accomplish, but it's not something to dwell on. So as the city moves forward, our businesses move forward, our people move forward, that's what I want to see happen. I don't want to just sit here on our laurels and say, well, we've been around for 60 years, so we're great. We have to keep changing, and we got to keep doing different things. And that's really over the next 4 or 5 years what I want to do. If my health holds out and the board keeps me, I'll hang around for a while.
Yay, good.
But, I just think we have so many things underway right now and so many plans that I want to see those all come to fruition and then hand it off to somebody at some point in time.
You are such an iconic radio personality in the area. What interested you in doing this?
Well, to be honest with you, a little over 10 years ago now, I've spent 50 years in broadcasting.
I know. Congrats on that, too.
Well, it's changed a lot, as you know.
Yeah,
and so I wanted to have a different challenge. So, I figured, okay, I sold radio, so I'm a salesman. I work with the community from city council and being on boards and being involved in community organizations. So that's an important thing. I also have media presence, and that's something we didn't have much of when I got to the chamber. And I worked with government when I ran the census office. So I've made an awful lot of connections over the years that I could put all together, and it's a jack of all trades and master of none. And that's really what the chamber needed 10 years ago.
Yeah.
After the Hoover Company left, the chamber had to change. And so it has changed, and it's taken probably about half the time I've been there to turn that thing around and move forward in a different direction. Not that the old direction was bad, but it has to be different now. And so now we're at that crossroads again, that for the next 4 or 5 years it has to change again and become, I guess, I don't want to say more relevant, because I think we are relevant with all we do. I don't think people know that. So I think it's important for us to let people know how much we're involved in the community.
What do you think is needed next? Who knew that somebody with exact your background was the perfect mix? What would you be looking for if you were to pick your successor?
Gosh, I don't know. I'd have to wait to find out what's out
Yeah.
there. Only
Yeah.
because the world's changing. And it's changing like by the day. It's not something that we can sit here and say, okay, next year this is going to happen, because we really have no idea.
Right.
And you have a presidential election next year that could change the whole dynamic. There could be changes in health care no matter who wins, because both parties are talking about that. That's going to affect businesses. It's going to affect everybody's lives. So I think, as I get closer to that point, that I think, I have to look at our board. I have to look at other people. Nonprofits, nobody's getting rich in a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
They might at the U.S. Chamber, but they don't at the North Canton Chamber. So, there has to be a certain dynamic from somebody that wants to give back to the community. And that's what I've always felt. And so I think if we find somebody like that at that point in time, it'll be cool.
You mentioned a little while back that so much of what happens in Washington affects us. I used to not think so. Used to not be like, it didn't matter what party was in office. It didn't really trickle down to do that much in our own communities. But we do feel it now.
Oh, absolutely.
Why do you think that is?
I think we've always felt it. I just don't think we ever realized it.
Maybe that's it.
Part of it was the economy was pretty good for a long time, but the changes that have been made, whether it be tax law or health care, or even things like opportunity zones that they're trying to push now. None of them are in North Canton, unfortunately. But those are the kind of things that can change a city, and then change a region. We're working right now on redoing, not me personally, but the city is going to redo the entire zoning code for the entire city in order to allow more millennial housing and to change the way we're looking at things. Also, downtown redevelopment district, innovation district, entertainment district, all those things we don't have in our toolbox. So by this time next year, we will, and that's going to make a big difference too. So again, you asked me the question. Heck, I don't know from one day to the next. I mean, all these things are coming at us.
Yeah.
So I think we have to give it a little bit of time to settle, and then take a look, and then, okay, we're at this point now. We need to be at this point then, and then we need to be at this point after that, and then we can look back and see if things are working or they're not. And if they're not, we got to change them.
Well, you're on it.
Trying.
We really wish you a happy 60th anniversary. We'll look forward to attending all these events. Go to the website, check out their website, check out a couple of websites. They're everywhere. Doug Lane, thanks you all you do in our community.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.